Welcome everyone, and thank you for joining for this session and also for having me today in that session. So I will talk about something which is, I think, not only exciting in our company. I would say every time I panic when I hear about, can we just talk about that topic? Can we have some kind of training about Copilot Studio? I would be a billionaire already. So I can already guarantee you that. So I try to compromise this training within 1 hour, which is a challenge, but I think challenge accepted, and I would say ready to go. So first of all, if you don't know me, so don't worry about that. We changed that today. So my name is Bülent. I live in Germany, and the ones already in my company knows that, but also some kind of LinkedIn. Then I'm just greeting everyone with aloha. And the people are curious, like, this is the place, in Hawaii, we're just using that. But I had my honeymoon a couple of years ago and was impressed by the relaxed people on that island and just kept that over to Germany. In Germany, not everyone is that relaxed. That's why my mission is just to keep that relaxedness also and try to infect the people in Germany there as well. My background is complete different as maybe the one another. So I have not really studied computer science. My degree is electrical engineering. Somehow I've just ended up in the company where I'm just working since 13 years in Avanade. And I stick with that because I'm very happy there. And I had chance to go to a lot of various of projects there. I worked 13 years in Dynamics 65 custom engagement projects. And since 5 years, I also have the honor to work for in Power Platform. And I have also the position as the global Power Platform learning lead, which just gives a lot of opportunities to dive into Power Platform and to work with some amazing people who also joined this call. I look at Simon at the moment, so where we're also executing some kind of trainings there in our company as well. My favorites are beside Copilot Studio, the Power Apps, and where I'm just working and just doing some kind of stuff there. And yeah, I'm also an MCT, which more or less hopefully qualifies me today to speak to you and to teach you about Copilot Studio as well. And in that case, let us jump over to our agenda. So the question is, what is Copilot Studio? We will just go quickly and have some marketing, Microsoft marketing, blah, blah there. More or less, when we have Copilot Studio, so how can I develop my custom Copilot there? We will dive also into a demo. We will see that after the Microsoft build from last week, there's a lot of things which have just changed. And if you're not familiar with that, then you will become familiar with that today, obviously. Later, there we will also look, there's also another tool, which is called Azure AI Studio, which I also want to do a little comparison. What you shall use, is it Copilot Studio, Azure AI Studio? Then I will also talk a little bit about the things which you never hear in some kind of Microsoft sessions about challenges and limitations, because there's always some kind of marketing and everything is fantastic. But to be honest, every tool has limits as well and some challenges. And I also want to point a little bit also out of that. Last but not least, I put that as a very last chapter, the $1 million question, the licenses, what does it cost me? So I put that to the end because I get that kind of question every time. I try to avoid as much as I can, but let's see if we just, also have a little glimpse here as well. And at the end, if we have some time, the summary and a little Q&A session. So if you have any questions, then we can have them in the end, but you can also put them into the chat, obviously. Good. So question number one, what is Copilot Studio? And well, this is first of all a service as a solution, or solution as a service, other way around. So you don't need to install that. You can just run that from every browser. It's a tool where you can just manage other Copilots and you can extend them. So the cool thing about Copilot Studio is it's pretty simple to learn. That's what usually do in a Power Platform. You're not familiar with any kind of techniques and so on, and you're new in the IT. So the Power Platform is really a nice thing, how you just came in and can just learn that. And the design is made of that you can learn with little clicks and you can already bring out, let's say, your own Copilot. It has also a variety of connectivity. So Microsoft always telling you about we have thousands of connectors there. So this is also a huge help, especially if you want to connect to other systems and want to also get like work with Copilot Studio as well. Multi-channel functionality, that means you can just publish that into Teams, into your own website or other services that Microsoft also brings and define as channel. You can also watch how your Copilot is doing outside in the world. So you do have telemetry data there, which just helps you to understand how successful your Copilot outside is. And you have, of course, everything under control. And Microsoft also comes up with responsible AI, that everything is secure and you don't have to worry about your data. And this also important as well. So now let's dive a little bit about the role of Copilot Studio. And this is a thing which sometimes people have a little problem with. So what is Copilot Studio? You have seen the blah, blah in the previous slide. But now let's define the role a little bit to give a better understanding about that. So let's assume you start here. So you have now in your company, you heard about Copilot, and you just start and say, okay, it might be for Microsoft 365 or for Dynamics 365 or whatever you want. And let's say you have now a Copilot. So the question, first of all, is what do you want to do with that? Am I happy with the out-of-the-box Copilot, or do I need to extend that? And in that case, in terms of Dynamics 365, we also talk about customizations. So if you say no in that case, I don't need any customizations for that, you maybe are happy with what Microsoft defines as first-party Copilot. That means they're the Copilot for sales, Copilots for service, Copilot for finance. So you see, I'm a Dynamics guy. That's why I just have everything that what comes first up to my mind. But there's also the Copilots which are built in applications. So for example, Copilots in the Power Platform, Copilots in SharePoint, and also Copilots in Dynamics 365, et cetera, et cetera. So if you come across and say, I need to do something else, I just need to extend that. So then you just ask yourself the question, what is it? Do I need only to extend in terms of low-code tasks? So do I need only do something with tasks? If your answer here is yes, then the answer is you should go with Copilot Studio. That means in that case, you can create your own custom pilot, but you can also extend the first-party Copilot here in that case. If the answer is no, and we will learn a little bit more later when we're just talking about Azure AI Studio, when we compare it with Copilot Studio, then you will find out that, for example, I want to do something with imaging, then Copilot Studio is not the right tool. So in that case, you should do everything else with Azure AI Studio, which is not that simple to learn. So it's not that for citizen developers, but still a mighty tool. And sometimes you need that kind of comparison to make the right decision, which tool you want to use in the future. Good. So this is the slide, which more or less have taken me a couple of days just to explain the complex world of Copilot Studio. So in that case, what I would come in that kind of levels are the so-called actions. So things you just want to do with Copilot Studio. One of the most important actions is what we have seen in the previous slide. So it's about authoring and extending. So, and you've also seen there was a custom Copilot and the first-party Copilot. So there, before Copilot Studio, this tool had another name. That was Power Virtual Agents, and have been founded by Microsoft in 2019. So during this time, there was something which was called topics and entities. So topic is a feature that is long time in that application. That means I want to guide a user to a simple process. For example, I want to tell a person, what are the store opening times, where is the location where I can buy something and so on. That kind of questions. Or during the COVID time, if any one of you still remember, there was a time, where we all were at home and, super confused. Can we go to the office? Yes or no? No? And then also that kind of Power Virtual Agent, had some kind of a high, and you can use this and had a chatbot there. And you could ask the chatbot if it's now safe to go to the office, what are the requirements that I can go there, and et cetera, et cetera. And that chatbot was a very helpful tool in that during this time. So topics are the way we're just defining and guiding someone to a specific topic in that case, and based on a trigger that a user is entering or selecting in the chatbot. While Microsoft during this times also built in something which I brand as a Copilot builder. That means building a topic from the ground can be, a little bit annoying. And that's why Microsoft had different ways, approaches, how you can make your life a little bit easier. And one of the easiest one is, I think that exists since now 1 or 1.5 years, is the so-called Copilot builder. So you use Copilot, you describe what you want to have as a topic, and then Copilot just suggests and build you something. And at the end, you accept that and can also, adjust it later. So that is a definitely huge help, especially if you have no idea what you want to do with your topic and you just write down your idea and boom, here we go. But that's not all. Talking about this, Copilot Builder, this is more or less an AI capability. That means there are also something which is called actions. And what do we mean by actions? So actions means that I just get some kind of information with the help of Dataverse or connectors or custom connectors, skills or flows. So you're connecting to different other systems and can get then information and which you can use in Copilot Studio. So you can also use it as a standalone tool, but the success of this tool obviously is that I can connect to different other systems and get information out of there. So you can just define that in so-called actions. But there's also something which I think is a breakthrough for that tool. I was previously called generative answers. So you just type something in and you don't define really your topic. So Marcus, you just only say, this is the website, for example. You just need to go there and you just grab the information and give them and generate an answer back to the user. That means that you had less work to do, but obviously also you don't know what a generated answer might look like. So it's not that deterministic, but it's a huge help. With the MS Build last week, there was a change there. So you don't find that wording answers anymore, but I still have it here because you still find it in your documentation. Microsoft just has rebranded that as so-called knowledge store. And what are the knowledge sources? So the ones which are already known because they exist since a couple of months are, you can set a public website, or you can set also internal SharePoints and what's also new OneDrives. Or if you don't have any of that kind of sources, you can also use files. That means you can upload a Word file, which is 3 megabytes big, for example, which have all the answers a user might ask them, and Copilot can leverage them and can give the according answer. What is new is you can also use now Dataverse, which is in preview. So that is a fantastic situation, like if you have a customer service or D365 customer service tool in place, and you have already all the information from there. So why to go over SharePoint or other sources? So you can directly connect to Dataverse and grab the information and can share that with a person who just asks, for example, what is the status of my ticket at the moment? And you just can go in here and then you can just share that. There's also another thing which I think is amazing, and this is Fabric. Fabric is also another hype beside Copilot since a couple of months, and everyone gets crazy about this as well. That means, what is Fabric? So if I start now explaining you what Fabric is, then I think we can stay till midnight here. So don't know if you have that time. For sure I don't, because I already see my son will, knock at the door at the end of the hour and will just, drag me out of that room and say, now it's daddy and playtime. But anyhow, Fabric is, a connection point where you just really connect a lot of sources there. And just imagine you just don't connect them in Copilot Studio, but you can just connect them in Fabric. And then you have a variety of knowledges from there, which you just can connect and work with data from there, which will be amazing. Currently, you see only coming soon. So I hope it will be also available in preview, so we can also test it out as well. So as you can see, this is the major part of Copilot Studio with authoring and with extending. So I'll try to explain it in such a way so it's a little bit easier for you to understand, but there's much more. So the next 4 things, we just go quick. Oh, I forgot about the first-party copilots, of course. Then there's also actions. The actions differs a little bit from the actions here above. So these are a little bit different actions. So you do have also prompts here as additional ones and conversational. So usually in a first-party copilot, if you don't create your own custom copilot, you usually would not have a topic there. But with conversational, you can just create your own topics there as well, which you can also then manage, which is only then available in your first-party Copilot. So you can extend your Copilot for sales, for example, regarding this, and can make it, like you just want to have it in that case. So what is also important to know is we need to understand what kind of large language model is behind. So in that case, we need to understand the models. So in Copilot Studio, you do have, first of all, your standard natural language understanding model. So I try to translate that to you, what that means. So the success of Copilot Studio, or in general of that generative AI, the success of ChatGPT is based on that you can interact with the system and it just understands you regardless how you just write that down. I don't know if you remember the times a couple years ago when Apple was one of the first companies and just came out and they said, hey, we do have now a voice assistant for you called Siri. And you see a man jogging and then he was like, yeah, and I just want to have a next appointment or read my emails. And in that marketing video, it looks everything so super smooth. Once you get in touch with Siri, you just know it's not that super smooth, and it's super annoying. And you need to do, if you want to have an appointment, you need to say that exactly in the way that Siri wanted and not like you wanted. So there's a huge difference. And all the Alexas and all the Google Nows and whatever, Cortana, anyone remembers Cortana? In that case, this is a huge, huge success that you can really describe it in your own language like you like to talk about. And this is the success. So standard NLU model just means you just define a topic and a trigger. And based on the trigger, let's say I just want to have, the store opening or the locations. Can you help me with that? So this is the success. But sometimes it's not enough. So the entities which I just have talked about, these are the places where you store, the information you have during a conversation. So if you talk with someone or the chatbot is talking with someone, you drop your name, you drop your address, the city you're living in, etc. It's been all saved in an entity. But here above, in that Azure CLU model, so a conversational language understanding model, and there, this is the case where you can also define, maybe someone is living in two different cities, that can happen. So you have a city where you live, with your family, but maybe you're just working in a different city during the week. And then you maybe need to define this as well. And, in that case, the normal standard NLU level model would not really understand this, and you need to extend that. The disadvantage of this is you need to configure this everything in Azure. So it's not pre-configured, and that makes the things a little bit harder to do, to be very honest. So in that case, it's a little bit complex. A little bit more easier it is with GPT, generative pre-trained transformer model, and dynamic chaining. Maybe you have heard about the wording dynamic chaining. So what this means? Dynamic chaining means if you ask the question, for example, how will be the weather in a specific location, and when are the stores open till which time? So if you would go with this model, you would just get two answers back. Dynamic chaining means that you have several stores and he just can combine everything into one answer, which is a huge help. That means if you, for example, ask in a Lego store, for example, what are the newest and coolest Lego sets I can just buy, then he will just chain that all together dynamically, and you're getting one answer back with a lot of that kind of suggestions. So this would not be possible with this one. That's why this is also some kind of important for us to understand. Last but not least, language. One of my favorite topics, by the way, as I live here in Germany and I speak fluent German. According to my wife, I do not, but you know, you have to believe me, I can. It's like that this was a huge thing in Power Virtual Agent, that you can select one of the 8 languages which were available, but you couldn't switch between the languages because that wasn't foreseen for a long time. So now in Copilot Studio, you know, can switch easily in your bot, and you know, and it supports then more as 8 languages now, which is a huge help as well. Integrate. I think one of the success stories of that tool is also that you can use custom plugins or low-code plugins there, an HTTP connector there as well, and also a PowerMate, which just helps you to connect to everything. So for governance and for secure, there's also a lot of things you can share your you can set the options for sharing of that of your chatbot or of your Copilot. You can set the authentication. So this is also important. For example, currently, if you want to connect with SharePoint and you want to say, I'm, you know, my SharePoint and my Copilot are in the same tenant, in the same company, I can use the same login, currently doesn't work. So in that domain, you just have to go with manual authentication for SharePoint to get this somehow working. So that kind of currently annoying situation, which I'm pretty sure will be fixed in the future. Web channel security, maybe you just don't want that everyone is, you know, connecting to your web bot, Copilot, and you can also do it here, or the allowances as well. This is one of the interesting parts. So the first 2 items which I'm just showing you, maybe not, but the third one which have been announced during MS build. So the first one is you have variety of channels where you can just publish that, and sometimes it doesn't help. Sometimes the chatbot is not helpful, and someone who just, you know, interacts with the chatbot is super annoyed, and then the chatbot just, you know, suggests you, shall I connect you with a real agent? So that would be the handoff in that case. But this is huge, which is coming, that changes a little bit the landscape of Copilot Studio. So Microsoft have just introduced something which they have branded as agents, and let's see if the name will be the same in a couple of months. So Microsoft is very good in changing names there as well. So agents is the first, when you interact with your Copilot, everything more or less happens synchronously. So you enter something into your chatbot and you get immediately an answer back. So it's synchronously. So agents, this really becomes now your real assistant in the future. So what does it mean? Just remember that everyone says, yo, it's Copilot, it's your assistant, but still you need to interact. You need to check, you know, what Copilot is doing. Is the answer which I'm just getting, which is generated, accurate, yes or no? Agents will be the next step. So just imagine you have an onboarding process with employees. You hire someone, and this have to go in your company through a variety of processes. You know, first of all, onboarding, you get 1 million things in your head short, and you have to remember everything. And then you have to do some kind of compliance trainings and other things, you know, will be put already into your project. So a lot of things will happen. So you can also feel a little bit lost, and it's good to have that kind of a process. And agents will now create more or less that process for you and will guide you, will send you a welcome message, send you, hey, these are your next step, what to do. And it's not only that, you will also get a history now. That means based on that history, you can see why Copilot Studio has decided to go this approach, and you will see all the reasons. So you can see based on the criteria which reasons have been, you know, written down. So it's more for your understandable why Copilot is going this way. And as I said, this will be asynchronously because this can be a long-running process. In the Microsoft videos, they have mentioned up to 1 year. So this is something running up to 1 year, and that obviously cannot run synchronously because then everyone else would then wait for ages, you know, when you would run this kind of thing synchronously. That means this is, you know, really becoming into the direction of a digital assistant. Really curious how that works. Unfortunately, I don't have any access to the early access program, so I have no idea how that looks like. So I'm clueless like you outside, except maybe some MVPs and fast track engineers already have, or Microsoft employees, obviously, who are working there. I would be really bad if the Microsoft person would be totally clueless. Oh, what are we doing? What I'm doing here? Good. Last but not least, the analyze part. That's also important. You need to analyze your Copilot based on customer satisfaction, based on engagement, resolution, escalation, and also, why people are just leaving the chat. So it's a chatbot. I can leave it. I'm not hurting any feelings, obviously. So, but it's obviously important just to understand why people are reacting on that. And you're just getting some Power BI reports where you can make some analysis. This will also be, a little bit more interesting as Microsoft brings out, that kind of conversational deepness. So why Copilot are deciding like this, and you're getting also more deep insight there as well. Good. I know this was long things, but I promise you from here, everything will be more easy. But I think it was good to know for us just to see how complex Copilot Studio is in just one slide. As I promised you, we will learn everything in 1 hour here. So how should I develop now my custom Copilot? So there are 3 things you just need to consider. First thing is, shall I go synchronously or asynchronously? So this is the first thing you just need to ask yourself in that case. The second one is, do I want to have more deterministic answers or non-deterministic answers? Based on that, you also go the direction if it shall be a topic or shall be more, dynamic chaining. And data shaping. So do I have a lot of data which I need to shape? Do I have no data to shape? These are the things you're just asking yourself. So, but in the next slide, it will be more clear what I mean by this. So for example, if you say the process shall be synchronously and it shall be more deterministic, and I have only limited data shaping, maybe I'm just using only PowerFX there. So obviously then you tend to go into a topic. You don't need the rest in that case. But if you say, hey, it's synchronously, but non-deterministic, and I don't have any kind of data shaping, because Copilot can just take over this, you can then use dynamic chaining. And based on what you're just selecting in that matrix, you can just go in any kind of that. Whereas Copilot action coming in, that is not accurate anymore, but as this is not live, so I can still use this matrix here in that case. That shall be a guidance, a help for everyone, just to decide in which direction to go. Because if you're new to this, it's really overwhelming in which direction you just want to go. So enough talking. So let's go and deep dive into how Copilot Studio really looks. So in that case, this is the new overview about Copilot Studio, how this looks like. So it's more leaned on of what you see if you're familiar in the Power Platform. You do have here your Copilot. You can just create something very quickly here. So you also have some kind of help. If you just say, I just want to do something with help desk, you see these are prepared answers. You just type in. And if I would go with this one, it automatically starts now then creating my Copilot. But obviously, this is not what I only want. So what is also new is so-called templates. So Microsoft have provided a few of them. So if you just go in here and click on the create part, then you see them a little bit more clear here. So you do have at the moment safe travels, store operations, sustainability insights, websites, Q&A, and others also will come. So currently you can't define your own templates, but I'm pretty sure in the future you will also be able to do this. It would be fantastic if you had that kind set of templates and use that in your project automatically. And I think that would be great. So if you click on one of these items, then automatically Copilot would now then start and create based on the template. So if I click, for example, on Safe Travels, then you will see more or less everything has been filled out. So it just tells you the name, Safe Travels Copilot. You can just change the name, you can change the icon. You can provide a description and instructions. So instructions is a prompt. That means you can tell Copilot in which manner you shall behave. You select your language. And as you can see, you can also add in here a knowledge. In that case, it just refers to the US travel site. So now if you would click now on create, it automatically would now create your Copilot, which I'm just currently not doing because I already have done this for this one. So no, I want to leave. So, but you can also start from the beginning. And what is also new is now you get some kind of interaction with Copilot. So that means if I click here on new Copilot, it starts a conversation with you. So on the right side, you just see what kind of things have been already, selected. So for example, you have the language as English, but you can change any of the languages here and can go in here and select what you want. Then it just asks you, hey, I'm here. I'm super helpful for you to help you out here, what you want to include. And then you can say, for example, I want to create an onboarding tool. And when I say onboarding, I'm not saying onboarding. So if I click now on return, then he just takes all that kind of information and just put it here on the right side. That means everything what you just defined can be seen here, and you can every time jump back and tell Copilot you want to have it differently. I don't want to go to the whole process because it's not that exciting, but it's just good for us just to know that in that case, there is some kind of a more guidance as it was previously before. So if I click on skip to configure, then it just creates only the shell of the Copilot. And then you can just go in, and this is more or less the same thing which we have seen. So you can now say create. And then instead of that fancy, lovely robot which was dancing, you see that a little bit not that fancy logo which is now dancing for you. You can just decide which is much more lovely to you. And once this is finished, this is the next change. Now you have a glimpse of all your copilots, which is in your system, which you now configure. So previously you have seen all the topics and all that other menu criteria here. You don't see them anymore. You see now all your copilots in here. And you see not only your custom copilots, you also see the ones which we declare as first-party copilots. So you have Copilot for Microsoft 365, which is built in, because if you have the license for this, you automatically be connected with this as well. And then I have no idea why Copilot for Sales, every time my demos just appears, if I click on this, then I get an error message. Hey, it's not supported in your environment. So no idea. Maybe this will be fixed in the future as well. What you also see as a future outlook, Copilot for Finance and Copilot in SharePoint, I'm pretty sure they will be pretty as a Copilot also will be coming in here and will be integrated as well. So if you go into your, I just called one chapter, build your first Copilot, then you see this one. So everything what was previously on the left side is now either here. So you have your topics in here, you have your actions here, analytics and channels. What is new is now your knowledge. So this is the place where you're just connecting now to your all the sources, which you can use now in Copilot Studio. And the rest is more or less hidden under settings. So generative AI, security, entities, language, everything been hidden there in the future or now. And what is also changed is that your test Copilot, that window where you just test everything, is now on the right and not here on the left beside the menu. This is also a new change. Good. Speaking about this, I'm just wanted to show you how a topic looks like. So I have a topic. So this is, by the way, from MS Learn, and you can also play with it around because it's one of the learning paths there for Copilot, where you just can build this. And this is a typical topic which not really some access. So there's no AI in it. So this is the typical one which you're just using. And if I just now type in this trigger, new store location in that chat, new store location, then you will see now that it just jumps in here. You see from the check mark currently where you are, and it just asks now which is the location you're interested in. You have the typical buttons which you just create. That is multiple choice options, but you can also, tell the user. You can also enter something on your own. Really depends on how you like to configure that. But entering something on, is always something. The chance of mistyping is bigger, especially for me. That's why I'm also using that kind of information. So as you can see, you have several conditions. If I would now select, for example, Seattle, and then it would just go into that here, that node, and just gives me that kind of information. Yeah, the Seattle store is located here, and this is the address, and did it answer the question? And if you say yes, in that case, it's happy and just ask you, give me 5-star rating. I was so good just to mention to you where the location is. Just give me the 5-star rating. And based on that information, which then lands up then in the report, in the analytics part, you can just figure out how good your Copilot is performing. So this is now one more or less the old school, which we have just built in here. But obviously, we're just interested how that looks like if you put in the AI capabilities here. So I just have, connected it to a source, to a Lego page. And, I have a little kid. I built a lot of Legos at the moment, where I think in a community, Lego is always a big thing. And now in that case, knowledge, if the knowledge does not appear, that is currently some kind of a annoying error. What just happens? So sometimes you see also something which is called add existing knowledge. And what will happen now is that I will see my knowledge 2 times in the same one. Oh, 1 time. Okay. Thank you, Copilot, that we're working so good together that you just embarrass me in front of everyone else. Thank you very much. No, just kidding. So sometimes it just really appears 2 times and it's normal. Maybe Microsoft could just fix that before that meeting. Yeah, that would be awesome. Good for you. Lucky you. Now you have that knowledge sort in that case. And yeah, you can automatically go into your chatbot and just ask the question. And the question would be, what are the newest Lego sets I can buy? Newest, here we go. 1T too much, new best. Here we go. I proved that I'm speaking fantastic English and can write that down. Everyone in the world can now see that outside of Avanade. I'm really happy about that. So now you can see, yeah, you have now the newest Lego sets available, things on, and that's just, several sources, dynamic chain magic in that case. If you just click on that link, it automatically now opens that store. Hopefully not a problem that I'm now showing something outside. We get sponsored, by the way, and in that case, you see that would working. Or you just ask a question like, what is the cheapest Lego set I can buy? So, and even, scroll to the website and just tells me and give me this one. And, and I can also ask, the expensive one, but I'm pretty sure that will be something with Star Wars, which will come out. I'm pretty sure. So based on this one, I never have built this topic. This topic is now a so-called conversational boosting topic. That means it just comes in here. The intent is unknown. So what I would type in, and based on, what kind of answer I have, is it blank or not? Because sometimes you also get something returned like, I don't know what you want. That happens also sometimes. It just jumps in here and then, create generative answers in that case and just gets it. So this is the data source. If you click on this one, this is a knowledge source which is connected, and it's just, I'm happy that it works because last week it didn't work. So I'm happy that this kind of demo today is working some kind. And you can also, tell, in that kind of instructions, like, can you make maybe the wording longer, or maybe pretend you're a comedian and you just give me the most funniest answers back to this and all that kind of thing. So be a little bit more serious and all that things. You can just give as an instruction, and then the situation will change here and the answer will definitely change for the same thing, which I just said, Good. One of my favorites, obviously, is also languages. So I just built something for languages, and you will never guess that I have selected a second language. You will never guess. So most probably it's German, and you're right in that case. So if I would switch now to German in that case, you will then see that this language is now changing also automatically. So you see now this has been changed. This part in the previous version also been changed to German as well. I have no idea why it's not changing now, but you can now add several of that languages now and can allow people to change to any of that language. So previously you needed to ask previously in the topic, which language do you prefer? And you were stuck with that. And now finally you can just change that and it's much easier. So these are only little glimpses of what we can just do with Copilot Studio. There's so much more, but unfortunately that 1 hour is not sufficient enough just to go to all that kind of things. Maybe you have just later then some questions regarding a specific one, and then we can just deep dive into this a little bit more. Good. So let me just return back to the presentation. And this was a little demo part. And now the question comes sometimes, or will come, especially if you're beginning of a project. So which one shall I choose? Shall I choose Copilot Studio or Azure AI Studio? So it's pretty simple to answer. So if you want to have some kind of low-code text experiences and you're not really a developer, you just tend to go with Copilot Studio. And you don't want to have less time on maintenance things. This is not important to you. You go with Copilot Studio. But if you say, for example, I just want to generate images or other things which are not possible with Copilot Studio, you just go with Azure AI Studio. If you want to have full cycle DevOps support or GitHub support, or what's your favorite place where you want to store these things in your ALMR process, obviously Azure AI Studio is the thing to go. If you want to train your own large language model, then you have to go with Azure AI Studio. Because as I said, this is a place in Azure where you usually are handling all that LLMs and where you just train them. And if you have already excited AI developers, most probably they will also go and use Azure AI Studio. Depends also on your client. If your client wants to manage a project after you have been with the client for a couple of months and then later you just go, then obviously they would stick more with Copilot Studio because it's easier to handle. If you go into Azure AI Studio, this is overwhelming, and you have to be a pro developer to manage that. The part which you've never seen in any kind of presentation is challenges and limitations. So let's talk about, first of all, about quotas. So sometimes it can happen that you have a situation like this. You're typing something like hi, and the sending just failed. So you do have the situation, that you have only a limited RPMs in your Dataverse environment. And based on that, it might be that it has been sent so often that it comes to a situation that the sending failed. So there's some kind of quotas. Maybe you just don't want to allow more. And in that case, this is something you definitely have into your mind. So if you go into your project and speak with the client, you just will have also to ask, how many people will use that in your project or from your clients, and et cetera, et cetera. What is also important just to know about the so-called application limit. So there's a web app and there's a Teams app. So you can also use, Copilot Studio in the Teams. And for example, if you have topics, you can only use 1,000 per Copilot in Dataverse environment. That sounds like a huge amount of number, but just imagine that you're just building a couple of Copilots and you have used that in your Dataverse. It can be a kind of limitation then if you don't look at that. So from trigger phases, you can't just, end up with endless triggers per topic. So 200 is the limit, but I would still say that's more is enough. And if you're using skills, by the way, I've never used skills. And I also don't see in the new era, why shall I use skills? You have a limit to 100 per Copilot. So if you're going more into Teams application, you see on the right side, then all that kind of things. But I can also share the link from Microsoft, which is good, quite hidden, the documentation, where I can see that kind of information as well. So there's also some kind of subscription limits as well. And what is also maybe surprising, the one other, if you talk with clients, there are services which needs to be open in the firewall, otherwise it will not work. So you need access to the bot framework, you need access to the telemetry data, because you just want to analyze how all that works, and et cetera, et cetera. And that kind of information has to be collected first when you're talking with your clients regarding this. Otherwise, if you don't go over this, then the first time you just want to try this out, it comes to some kind of a surprise. What is also important to know, Microsoft is also adding new features, like the knowledge source, for example, which didn't work in the first week. Now it seems like it's working better. You have just to check if the others also working quite well. So this is some kind of a challenge. Just keep every time on mind, if something new coming, don't run to the client and promise this is the best ever I've seen. So always be a little bit cautious that, that can be you can run into some kind of limitation there as well. The things which we mostly The one thing we're just talking in project, hopefully, is about security. You know, who shall have access to the bot, and if you to the Copilot, and if you just don't look extremely carefully, it can also happen that you exposing information which shall not be exposed. So if you have, for example, a very keen Copilot builder and just connects to Dataverse and just expose more or less the data, then outside because someone just types in the keyword and Copilot just spread everything out, that would be a leak which is, you know, unforgivable, you know, and this is something which definitely needs to be taken into consideration as a risk. And performance. You know, my experience is you talk about performance once the tool is live, and then the first complaint comes. Then obviously it's a little bit too late, you know. But the thing is that performance with Copilot or also with Power Virtual Agents, you know, is still a big thing. That means I had it in one situation when we were talking internally about the client situation, that the Copilot didn't work out that fast. So on a website, you click on a button and the chatbot just came and was fully that you can type something in the after 15 seconds. It's not huge, you know, but you know, some people just want to use that and click on that and have to wait 15 seconds, and they don't know they had to have to wait that long time. This can be super annoying. That can lead to some kind of a stress situation in your project. You know, why is the performance that bad? We figured out in that situation when I executed that chatbot or the Copilot from my internet connection, the website or the chatbot just opened within 2 seconds. When in the client environment, it just opened with a much longer time. So these are the things that need to be taken in consideration. I just know from my previous project, sometimes the client environment are not the fastest one. And that's why if you test it there, then you get sometimes not that the best performance out of that. And this is something definitely needed to be taken into consideration, and just want to make you aware about that. I'm pretty sure you all are aware about that, but I see that in project all the time. Performance and documentation are really the last things at the end where you really take your consideration. Now, the $1 million question. I just didn't want to write licenses because that's so boring. So what does it cost me? Well, this is the question I'm super avoiding in my trainings when people just come, but this is one of the most asked questions, you know, besides where can I get the PowerPoint deck you're just presenting. The thing is that what you need is the following. So if you have a license for Copilot, you know, the pricing includes a tenant license, a per user license, and this is the most important part. You are spending $200 for 25,000 messages a month. So how can I imagine now 25,000 messages a month? So that's why I've just put it in that right box here. So how does it all consumed? So if it's a regular answer you're just getting back, it's consumed by one message. If it's a generative AI answer you're just getting back, it's 2 answers. And here we have also some examples. So for example, a user asks when a store is opened, and Copilot replies back. So this is one build message. So you don't have 25,000 anymore. Now you have 24,999. So if Copilot now greets you on a website, it's also one build message. So every interaction that Copilot, they billing you. So now it comes. So if you ask Copilot for store hours in the upcoming holiday, now it used generative AI in the background to give you that answer. That means that are 2 build messages. So you see only that 3 examples, you have already 4 build messages already. Now I assume you had a lot of people who are using that on your website as a source and so on. You can see how the 25,000 messages going down very quickly at the end. So you don't know what your consumption is. You don't know how your customers, you know, you're just developing for your client are using this chatbot and so on. But these are all the things you just need to monitor in your telemetry, you know, and you analyze that at the end just to be. So if a client comes, because this week someone also asked, tell me something about this one. This really depends on the consumption, and this is where you just have to make an assumption how people will use that, you know. Good. We are more or less at the end. So what we have learned within this 1 hour. So we have learned, first of all, what is Copilot Studio. Then I just gave you an overview about how you can just develop your own custom Copilot. So there was that matrix you can just use. We had a little demo. We have understood, at least on a very high level, the difference between the Copilot Studio and Azure AI Studio and when I shall use what. Challenges, limitations was also some part of that session here today. So we have seen, and also some risks and challenges. And last but not least, we also have in 2 minutes that licenses Christian also left behind us. Good. Now you can ask Christian if you want, except for lottery numbers, because they're all mine. I'm trying also to win next weekend again and again, but no luck so far. So anyhow, I try it next weekend again. So if there are any questions, that's now your time.
Thank you. That was awesome. I'm not trying to win the lottery. I've given up. So you can keep your numbers. Are there any questions or comments or anything at all to say from the people?
Just that it was an amazing session. Well done, Bülent. Really
Thank
cool.
you.
And I love the IT crowd graphics and GIFs all through it. Very cool.
Something different to the Avengers, which usually comes here more often, right?
I feel targeted right now, but I know we have Nati on the line as well, and Nati does too. So we got good collaboration.
I think it was really, really good demo. I really enjoyed that. I think from my point of view, it's come on. I implemented Power Virtual Agents back in 22 for an organization, and haven't really had an opportunity to look at it properly since it's evolved to the Copilot, and it's massively evolved. And I can see I've got a trial version up, and I can see it's still massively evolving. So yeah, it's really good to see it in practice.
I could have also have the fun and I said, now let's go to the Copilot Studio documentation. I'm pretty sure after 5 minutes, I would have lost the half the people either asleep or just doing something else, because I can tell you this is the best way of, falling asleep, but not the best way in just putting that in that kind of session here.
Well, what you need to do is you need to point a Copilot to the documentation and just get people to ask questions, and then you don't have to learn it.
you have with Angelique the right person. So I've attended the session in Hamburg with her, with Joe, and they just did something regarding licenses, the demystified licenses. So it's absolutely the right tool to do, and Angelique can tell you more about that.
It's a really good use case, but what we found is that the licensing guides and interpreting them is not always the easiest. So you have to think outside the box in terms of your knowledge base and how you can enrich it with other sources. So even if it's documentation, you're going to have to look, for example, at blog posts or other sites that might help you enrich that, especially when you're trying to demystify it, as Bülent said.
One of the coolest things which I tried, and I also wanted to demo that, but unfortunately I massively failed, is Microsoft documentation last week, which they called Book of News. So with everything what have been pushed out during the MS build, fantastic to read. And I just wanted to put that as a knowledge source for Copilot Studio and ask Copilot Studio, what can you tell me about what happened in Copilot Studio? Bam, massively failed. Maybe because the knowledge source thing didn't work that quite well. But I had a colleague in our company who just have built that with Azure AI Studio, and the UI looked completely differently and so on. But it was just really amazing. You just put in a keyword and you got really good answers regarding this. And this is really, really fantastic how you can also leverage that kind of tools.
We have a couple of questions in the Q&A for you. Well, one question, one comment. Would you like to have a look?
So for some reason, I don't see at the moment any of the chats here.
Yeah,
So
chat. It's not chat, it's Q&A. I'm sorry, it's really annoying. I don't know why. It's something to do with the way we
can't
set
see
it
it.
up. Can you not? Okay, I'll read it out to you. So the first one was from Chris, not a question, but excellent session with a bit of comedy thrown in. Thank you so much for the deep dive into Copilot Studio. Oh, and thanks, Sarah. And then say, if we make a conversation with 10 transactions, 10 from a user and 10 from Copilot, we are charged for 20 build messages. Is that right?
Yeah.
Okay. So your questions. Do you know, I had a conversation with someone earlier today from an end user who is getting pushback from the business about using Copilot Studio and maybe looking at other products instead. It doesn't look like he's made it to the session today because it was only a couple of hours ago. But is there any advice you would give to somebody who's trying to convince their kind of money spending team to use this over other products out there?
To use Copilot in your company. I mean, Copilot is a huge help, right? Massively with all the functionalities. If you don't use Copilot in your company, so we do it massively in our company already. Comes with the licenses already, is M65, obviously. I use that in my daily work, for example, to summarize any meetings, for example, or any emails, and this is a huge help and helps me, in terms of times. So, but these are only a few things, and I would say if you once, started with using that kind of services, you don't want to miss them anymore. Or also, for me, as I said, I'm just working in the global learning section in our company. And for me, it's important to create, new training content. It's massively a help if I just ask Copilot regarding this. So, and Copilot Studio is then the tool to go, to configure all that kinds of Copilots and in the future. So that means, and it's, by the way, also one of the more or less the only tool where you can really configure something. There are also other Copilots for sales where you can do some kind of configuration, but it's really not that massive. If you want, to extend your Copilot and make it work like you want, and there's much more. I haven't the time just to show it to you, obviously. Then you can just make more out of it. So, for example, that Lego example which I had, it just points now to the American side, but the majority of you are in UK. Maybe interested, UK price or UK set. So you can use also, Bing custom sites or searching site or what it calls, and then you can just customize. If you're located in UK, you only get then the answers, the generated answers, just only from UK, for example. So there's a lot of configuration options where you can just use it to. I think every time where it just saves you some time. And I mean, that is what Copilot is all about, generate you and save you some time. You should definitely use that. And I think a major plus will be definitely in the future with Copilot agents, where it really becomes your digital assistant and helps you not only with that example I just gave to you with a employee process or employee onboarding. Just think about other longer running processes where you just need to check from time to time, are we on track? Yes or no? Have people done their work? Yes or no? And, it would be great if Copilot automatically sent that kind of reminders and checks with the people. This is a massive help.
And this is probably making it clear that I'm really not technical at all, but with the agents, will that be a kind of learning model? So as you have more and more onboardings, the suggestions will change. Is that the way that works?
It might change. So currently I can't give you a clear answer to this because I just don't know how agents will work, but we will learn about that in the upcoming weeks, where I think then more information will also drop out, and then we can make an own session maybe for this in the future, just to show where we just know more about that.
Yeah, no, and again, everyone knows I'm not technical, and I followed that totally, and I've not really seen a session on Copilot Studio solely like that. So yeah, feedback from me is excellently presented, and if I can understand that and follow it, then I'm sure the people you train are very grateful for your communication skills. Thank you so much. That was awesome. Thanks so much for coming. Please come again. Thanks, Angie, for the introduction and for coming today. And for everybody else for being here.
Thank you very much, folks. It was a
hope to see
pleasure.
you back soon.
Have a great day.
Thanks,
Bye.
you too. Take care. Bye.